The world of gaming is constantly in a state of chaos, dude. One moment, Nintendo's dropping a console and everybody's boycotting it because it's too expensive, and then RAM prices triple overnight, and those same people are like, hold on a second, maybe I do want $30 DLC before the game even drops. Being at the front of any industry means that you're going to have to walk through a lot of chaos and resistance just to enjoy things. But if you keep moving forward in the gaming industry, you will notice something incredible. Not just retro games, but you'll notice a tunnel that they have dug themselves that goes deep underground into something even more spectacular. ROM hacks. This area and cave right here is genuinely one of the greatest spaces within gaming, and I hold it so closely to my heart. And some of the best retro games that you've never even played exist down here underground. ROM hacks, for those of you who are unaware, are fan-made versions of classic games. They take things that you already love, throw them in a blender, and then add in quality of life improvements, better graphics and sprites, new storylines, new game mechanics, and just a little bit of tapatio, and the end result is, in a lot of ways, better than the original product. Sometimes they'll do things like enhance the original experience.
I can't do anything. What the f is this? I can't do anything. This game is awesome. Oh my God.
And sometimes they'll put Mario inside of Bikini Bottom because why not? Like many other people in this space, I got introduced to ROM hacks through Pokemon, and I've already made an entirely separate video just on Pokemon ROM hacks alone because it is like, this area is by far like the dominant section of ROM hacks. But today, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to discuss with you and share my love for ROM hacks in general, because seriously, we are blessed to have these things in the community and in our lives right now. So please go ahead and hop in here on the King of Red Lions. I've saved you a seat because we are about to embark on a journey throughout the 7 C's of ROM hacks. All right, I'm going to go through the different categories, the purpose of ROM hacks, and of course show you some of the most beautiful and wackiest ROM hacks that exist in this community. These projects make me feel like I'm a kid again inside of Walmart, and my grandma told me I get to pick out any GBA game that I want. I can literally just point at one of them and she's gonna buy that for me. And by the end of this video, I hope that I can share this giddy excitement with you. Wait, speaking of my grandma, I think I can sense her in this room with me.
Hello, Isaac.
What's up?
I just found an app where I can sell my collectibles.
Okay, that's pretty cool. What are you trying to sell?
Some retro video games.
Do you even own retro video games?
I do not.
Then where did you find them?
Isaac, I found them in your room.
Big thank you to Whatnot for sponsoring today's video and keeping the CRTs on. Whatnot is a live shopping app where you can pretty much buy anything or sell or auction anything that you're interested in, whether that's cards, video games, retro video games, collectibles, shoes, clothes, you name it. There's probably a section on this app. I spent some time browsing other people's pages here, and it's a lot more interactive than I had thought. I saw Metroid Prime 2, which I've never played before, for the GameCube, and this is one of my favorite box arts I've ever seen, so of course I had to snag this. And then also Mega Man X4. They're both complete in-box editions, and for the Mega Man one, I was actually in the chat talking to this dude like finagling with him.
Isaac, good pickup, bro.
This sponsor works perfectly for this video because they're letting me give back to you guys $100 to any random person who uses my QR code or my link in the description to sign up and create an account. Just comment below your username, and then in a couple of weeks, I'll pick a random person and message them on Whatnot, and then they'll be credited $100 to their account. You get $15 off your first purchase just by using these things, which is pretty sick. So thank you so much to Whatnot for sponsoring this video, letting me give back to some of you guys if you're watching. watching this, and we can get back to the video now. All right, first stop here on our trip through the ROM hacking 7 Cs is, of course, the why island. Why do these games even exist? What is the point of digging through old code when modern gaming has never been bigger and better? In my eyes, ROM hacks exist to answer the age-old question of what if? All of us have genuine love for things we played when we were younger, and they felt like masterpieces, even if they were absolute garbage. Like, I'll be the first to admit, dude, you know, I did enjoy Wii Music. You guys know this. I don't know why. I was vibing out to Wii Music. For whatever reason, I thought this was a great game. I just remember playing the Earth, Wind, Fire, like, song thousands of times. I don't know why my toddler brain was obsessed with this song, but I played it like 300 times. But obviously, as we have aged alongside some of these games, we have the ability to objectively analyze them and replay them to see if they lived up to the hype that our younger self played on them. And, you know, it does make me wonder, like, there's got to be a lot of kids out there that are loving the newer Pokemon games, right? And I think hindsight is always 2020, and ROM hacks get to take full advantage of this, whether or not that's readjusting a couple of small details of the game or literally reimagining everything about it. At first, it starts out very simple with the what ifs. You know, what if Smash 64 had more characters? What if Super Mario Land had color? What if Mother 3 was translated into English? And then it just goes off the rails, dude. What if Mario was in Sonic Adventure? What if Persona 4 was on the Game Boy? What if Mario 64 displayed the chaos that our hearts are consumed by? ROM hacks are beautiful because they don't exist under the constraints of like modern day developers and releases. The developers of these fan games are able to explore any what if that they want to because they don't have to make money and don't do this to impress or get accolades from other people. It's genuinely just made out of love, and it truly is like the, you know, home style, the grandma's food in comparison to like processed junk. The ROM hacking community is a blinding reminder of just how much money truly corrupts like everything that we love, okay? Like, these things are not tainted by the idea of making millions of dollars, but instead just creating a passion project for other people to enjoy. And money, you know, it really is the root of all evil. Even with this channel, dude, I struggle of trying to balance creative output that has experimentation with making money and not wanting something to flop, because this is now turning into, hopefully one day, my dream job. And it's kind of like I get more fearful as I find more success with the channel because, you know, I want it to be my job, and it just ruins everything, dude. This, as much as we love this thing, it is just, oh my gosh, it just sucks. ROM hacks don't have to worry about this dilemma because, you know, if they made money by doing this, and the best part is there's an infinite number of what ifs and ways to explore these classic releases, which brings us to our next destination category, island. There's so many different types of ROM hacks out there, and like, I don't think there's official ways to truly categorize all of this stuff. This is how I view it. I could be totally wrong, but I'm gonna explain to you the way that my tiny little cerebro tries to categorize the wonderful world that I'm presenting you with. Up first, I'm gonna hit you with the most digestible style of ROM hacks, and that is enhancement hacks. These are very familiar if you've heard of any Pokemon ROM hacks or even watched my other video. They take that classic game or whatever game it's hacking and then sprinkle on a little bit of polished and smooth out the edges to give it a more modern feel and experience. Adding quality of life features, fixing glitches in tedious areas, adding better sprites or character models, and in some instances, even translating the entire game into a different language. One of the biggest barriers of entry for retro games is just their outdated level design and like game theory, but in a lot of ways, I still think most of the retro games are better and hold up stronger with their design. But you know, hindsight is 2020, and it doesn't take a genius to realize that maybe Link shouldn't be controlled with a DS stylus. Simple examples do exist, like the Phantom Hourglass D-pad patch, which makes you have the ability to control Link with the D-pad instead of the stylus, or, you know, Mother 3 that got translated into English to bring us Westerners a way to play the game. Then we get to the more ambitious hacks that take the full game itself and min-max every little detail to be as squeaky clean as possible. For example, Super Mario Land is a Game Boy game, but Super Mario Land DX attempts to bring this thing to life by giving it color, brand new sprites, smoother animations, and a better frame rate, and like dozens of tiny little tweaks that you probably won't even notice. This happens across the board with popular titles like, you know, Majora's Mask has a redux. I talked about A Link to the Past redux in a previous video that fixes things like the Ice Palace and increases your bow and arrow limits and so much more. Super Metroid has a redux. There's Final Fantasy with a redux. You know, just go to the website and look up reduxes and see if one of your favorite games has a polished version. A lot of us have favorite retro games that we're too lazy to go back and replay because we just don't want to put up with the glaring issues that they do have due to outdated game design. You know, like I love Sonic Adventure 2, but I do not want to go back and play as Knuckles. Please don't make me fly around again. These ROM hacks aren't reimaginings or adding too much to the original base game. They're just little corrections. But let's say that you wanted something with a bunch more extra content, and not only did you want to play the original game, but you wanted to see if maybe there's a little bit extra that we could add on, and that'll bring us to probably my favorite category throughout this entire video, and that is remix hacks. Instead of just enhancing the base game, they aim to extend the base game and add even more. It's almost like, you know, say Nintendo was able to somehow give you a DLC and allow you to update your cartridge that you bought in the 90s. This is like the exact same concept. They're like, hold on, let's give them even more DLC and added functionality to the base foundation. The prime example I can think of here is Mario Kart Amped Up. Boy, oh boy, this ROM hack is increíble, dude. I don't know why I'm speaking Spanish. I'm learning you could tell I'm on Duolingo. Okay, I've been saucing it up right now. You're looking at 16 additional courses, 5 new game modes, and 3D racers that change out the original like 2D billboarded sprites. So now we've got enhanced visuals, more content, more tracks, more characters. The reason why these are my favorite is because it's like an in-between of not only enhancement hacks, but then we're also getting so much extra content. So it feels sort of like a new game, but it's got the base of the retro game, if that makes sense. It's wild. And I noticed that most of these remix hacks are involved with like party games, you know, like there's so many different Mario Kart versions of remixes where it takes the original base game and then adds all of the different courses. You've got like a DS version, a Wii version, and then there's a Mario Party version as well that gives you even more to do in Mario Party with more maps and more boards as well. And then of course I gotta talk about it, Smash 64 has been upgraded to Smash Remix. They added so many new characters and maps, and I had a blast playing this with some of my homies. So if you're looking for a good like get together, like let's all hang out and play some stupid ROM hacks, I mean, you can't go wrong with Smash Remix. But by far the best, most recent example that isn't even a party game here is Mario Eclipse. The name suggests that this is a sequel to Mario Sunshine, but it's really not. It's a remix where they take the silhouette of the original game and then gut it completely and fill it up with much more potent content, and in my eyes, the like truly like a crazier experience with all of this extra content packed into it. 120 brand new shines on top of all the other ones, 3 new characters that are playable, there's new bosses and remixed fights as well as an improved game engine, and then, you know, they do things like making an added section where there's like a Pianta Mafia and you've got to go against them and figure out what's going on with these crime-infested evil Piantas with more storyline. It really does it all and gives you the added DLC. I'm telling you, this is like if Nintendo were able to somehow give you more after you purchased Mario Sunshine. This game, like I said, isn't really a sequel, but let's just say you were looking for a sequel. Like you wanted a completely new original storyline, and if that's the case, then my friend, you must dive into the original and new story hacks. Sometimes we crave the nostalgia of older games, but don't want to go back and replay it because we have literally done it 1,000 times. Like there's just no point, dude. You know every single line of dialogue, you know every single step to take on a quest or on a mission, and it's just, what is the point? Well, now we've got people who are making brand new sequels or spin-offs to your favorite retro games. There's even new mechanics and features that oftentimes get added to these types of hacks, and the first one that I think of is a classic in the community, and that is the Zelda Parallel Worlds hack, which is a overhaul completely of A Link to the Past. This is an OG hack that was literally released, I believe, in 2006, which is wild that this has been around for so long, and it's a controversial hack. I'm not gonna lie to you. On the surface, it looks cool. It looks literally like A Link to the Past got a sequel and has different graphics, a newer story, newer mechanics, but this game is kind of impossible. It is not for the lighthearted, dude. I'm telling you, the mobs, the enemies will attack you and do so much more damage per hit. You'll have to do a lot of backtracking, and I would not recommend this, which is why people have gone back and literally did like a remodeled version where they made this game not as painful, and I would recommend that you go and play this one instead, unless you like stabbing your eyeballs out, like I said, with a DS stylus. That's a move that we've just got to get used to here on this channel. While I was doing some research for this video, I found a ROM hack called A Plumber for All Seasons, and this is like, oh man, this is such a cool game, man. This is literally the perfect sequel in my eyes to Super Mario World. Every single world here is based off of a season, so obviously you've got summer, winter, fall, spring, and it does a complete overhaul with the graphics as well as the OST. The OST in particular is so good here. I've been using it throughout this video, and I think it genuinely sounds like an original Super Mario World soundtrack. And speaking of OST, dude, the SNES, this is a tangent and super random, but I recently have been going on like a random research dive where I have been looking up how SNES music was made back in the day, and oh my gosh, I genuinely think SNES music is like one of the pinnacles of humanity, dude, of our creations. These dudes were making some of the greatest compositions I've ever heard on like hardware that only let them use 64 kilobytes of RAM and like 8 different channels of instruments. It is, I'm gonna make a whole video on this, but I'm like actively losing my mind at how SNES music sounds so good but was so limited, and it's just a reflection on like limitation and how that makes creativity so much better. Anyway, back to the new story hacks. The Legend of Zelda Missing Link is a really cool one too, that places itself right in between Ocarina of Time alongside Majora's Mask, and it's got like a story that tries to, you have to find Navi after she suddenly disappears, and then you go on a journey to realize that the fate of the world is on the line again. And you know, if the fate of the world isn't on the line, then do I really want to play the game? Another old classic that never even got released but was like 98% finished was Chrono Trigger Crimson Echoes. This is an older hack similar to Parallel Worlds, but they ended up getting like a cease and desist right before they were about to finish the game. So just a little bit of lore and history in the ROM hacking space, and this happens a lot, unfortunately. You know, big companies just, they don't want us to have fun. Before we get to the final category, I want to do a little shout out to this subcategory that I talked about in the Pokemon video, which is demakes. These are almost entirely experimental, and I think that the creation of most of these started exactly like this. It was like, okay, but like, what if Mario Galaxy was on the Nintendo DS? There's a broken demo of Mario Odyssey trying to run on like a 3DS. You got Breath of the Wild that doesn't really work on the Nintendo DS. And then a lot of people, especially with the GBA, I've seen this dude on YouTube trying to put Minecraft on the GBA, and you know, most of this stuff is kind of irrelevant, but there are some hidden gems, and we're talking about the GBA. If you guys are aware of the game Celeste, that's super popular, the indie game, you know, it's a platformer, it's got all this movement in it. This amazing game, for those of you unaware, actually started out as a Pico 8 game called Celeste Classic, and this is still a lot of fun to play, and I have messed around with this on some of my retro handhelds, and it did get ported to the Game Boy Advance. So if you want to play this on like original hardware, like a GBA, there is now an option to do that. And probably one of the coolest ones I've seen in this space is Super Metroid for the GBA, where somebody took the Super Metroid Zero Mission for the GBA ROM and then redid it so that it's the actual story of Super Metroid for the SNES, but it's in the GBA aesthetic and style. A lot of demakes, unfortunately, do not see the finish line. I've seen something like Bloodborne for the PS1 look awesome, but then this got canned eventually with a cease and desist. And then also, I believe there was Portal 64 for the N64 that Valve ended up emailing the developer and was like, yo, you got to stop doing this. And, you know, we just can't have fun stuff, guys. Okay, last on this list are the ROM hacks that make you look at your screen and just go, what the f. These are the hacks that I don't even know. I don't even know what this is, dude. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they exist, but they exist. We just talked about the platformer Celeste, right? Well, what if it was Super Mario Bros. Instead in the Celeste style? Hold on, what if we turn Mario 64 into a labyrinth horror game that is genuinely terrifying? Or maybe you want to play a ROM hack called Pokemon My Ass, and it's just this. What? ROM hacks can comedically or brilliantly get very, very absurd, very, very fast. And, you know, if you're looking for some quick entertainment, then you could tap into this source of chaos because there's a lot of different options out there. And some of them are just so left field that it works. Like whenever you look at Hero of Law, they're trying to turn Ocarina of Time into like Ace Attorney. So you get to play as Link and then you're a lawyer and you're yelling objection. And it's just, it looks like it's a joke, right? But I'm telling you, man, it kind of works. So there you have it, my complete list of all different categories of ROM hacks. I'm sure that I must have missed out on a bunch of ideas and categories, but this is just what I've seen, what I've experimented with, and how much I've dipped my toes into the vast ocean that is ROM hacks that we've been exploring here on this boat. And the boat has just reached Recommendation Island. Honestly, I feel like this one is going to be kind of harder because I don't know where you want to start or which games you want to play. And what I've noticed here with ROM hacks is that every single individual game has their own little like subculture and community that predominantly enjoy those types of ROM hacks. So the biggest one obviously is the Pokemon ROM hacking community. That's what really started, I'd say, a lot of the popularity with ROM hacks because it works so well. But you'll see it bleed into other things like Mario 64 has its own little tight-knit community. Super Mario World has a big community itself. Castlevania, I'm noticing, is getting some traction. So I would love to just tell you a specific game that you should play, but it's hard, you know, this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. It depends on what types of games and what retro games you want to play. So I'd recommend you look for a specific game that you're interested in, and ideally, if it's more popular, it's more likely to have a ROM hack. And our final stop here is How Island, because if you're going to play these retro games and these ROM hacks, how do you play them and what should you play them on? That's going to be a common question, and typically ROM hacks usually work by patching your original file. So you have to bring your own ROM to the table, and then they patch that ROM with all of the added content and features. I'm not sure of the extreme technicalities of it, but that's usually how this goes down, and I will not be showing you or linking you where to get ROMs because I am a law-abiding citizen, but I will show you a bunch of hardware that I geek out about on this channel, like retro handhelds, that I would advise if you're gonna get into this stuff. Making a purchase here could be pretty freaking sweet. If you want to go budget, you got the Trim UI brick. I will continue to recommend this thing. It is like, I would give this to any of my friends if they wanted to get into the scene. I trust this handheld will serve you well well if you're new to the space, or maybe even like the RG40XXH could be a good budget entry level machine. And if you want to go mid-tier and get something even fancier, I talked about the 476H, which has a nice, beautiful, big 4x3 screen. So since all of these ROM hacks are mostly on the classic retro systems, a bigger 4x3 screen is usually what you're going to want to push for, and this absolutely accomplishes that. And finally, the device that I just can't shut up about is the Thor. If you want to just splurge and spend so much insane amounts of money on something that does everything you could ever imagine it, and also like rot your brain with 2 screens, the Thor does in fact exist, and you would know that if you've watched this channel. You don't need to buy any of these things, and I'm guessing everybody watching right now probably has a handheld or 2 that can already run these games, whether that is a retro handheld or your phone that could be a retro handheld too with the emulation on that, or a computer, an older tablet. Dude, thankfully these games are so much easier to run because they're so old, so you're not going to run into too many problems. But I still think retro handhelds are like the final little cherry on top of this cake. If you're an OG hardware type of person, then you can get an EverDrive, which lets you play any ROM that you place on the SD card on these cartridges, and then plug that into the original system, and then bang, you're playing ROM hacks that were fan made on original hardware. So like all the footage that you see from me playing Smash Remix with my friend Jack, this was on an EverDrive on my N64 plugged into a CRT TV. So it felt like an authentic experience, but it was actually just a ROM hack. And I'm telling you guys, I think as much as I talk about retro handhelds and how they make me feel all like giddy inside when I play them, this is like this is another area, man, where like it makes my like the bottoms of my feet start to tingle, because it's like I'm playing some type of release that I never found out about it because I'm on original hardware, man. And you could get this on some handhelds, but there's something about like the CRT magic with ROM hacks that is undeniable. And there you have it, folks, my official entry video for ROM hacks and recommendations, and I'll probably do an updated video on this just like the Pokemon one later down the line, because this place and this space on the internet not only is getting more popular, but I'm just seeing the development increase with quality with every single release. And I think that's because we hit a baseline where thankfully a lot of these developers are dropping projects and letting people use it, and it's open source. So then now you can base your next ROM hack off of the original template that just got released, and it's continuing to stack on top of each other and exponentially increasing with quality, which is what's happening right now in the Pokemon ROM hacking space. I think 2023, 2024 was a little bit quiet. We had some good releases, but then bang, 2025 was unbelievable. And I think that other areas like the Mario 64 space or the Super Mario World area are starting to catch up now. Maybe A Link to the Past could start getting some cooler releases and drops, and I'm just so excited. I hold this community, like I said at the intro, very close to my heart, and if you're going to tap into this space yourself, I just want to remind you that these developers and these groups of people make this stuff for free, so I hope you keep that expectation going into it. I've seen a lot of like hate comments and like shade thrown on ROM hacks, and I'm like, dude, these guys are making stuff for free that you get to enjoy, and you're like trying to take a dump on top of the people who make this stuff for free out of passion. Like, dude, relax. This is not a AAA studio that's getting paid multi-millions of dollars to give you this. Like, dude, relax, man. So just keep that in mind and do yourself a favor by enjoying what we have now on the table, because oh man, it's the retro scene, dude. I'm so happy with where things have gone and where it's going, and the community is as ever so nice and so welcoming to anybody that wants to enjoy the classic foundation of gaming itself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to my playthrough of Pokemon My Ass. Thank you.
Right back with a peace sign. I'm a sucker for the short, not a long time. Never drop plan A for the beat line. Even if your name etched on a street sign, I'ma hit you right back with the peace sign. 4-5